Okay, I've got 9 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started on the budget work session. The camera's going, everything's on, so we'll go ahead and get started. Mr. Lothery, did you have anything to start out with, or you just want me to go ahead and start with the first?
Well, I'd like to hear a recap of what got dropped on us yesterday.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. So if we go down,
there were some things that was a surprise to us yesterday.
Yeah, especially the things that weren't necessarily in their budget, but they brought up above and beyond. So we could start with, for instance, talking about the 911 funds, money that they didn't ask for. That Chuck was talking about the $250,000 shorties that we're going to have to cover radio stuff
this year.
Yeah.
In this year's budget. Yeah.
Yeah. So, commissioners, yesterday as we went through the department meetings for budgets, the 911 fund that you just mentioned, as the sheriff and Chuck McGaha explained, previously the city was picking up a little more of the tab, and probably a disproportionate share, honestly, city of Leavenworth. So they're keeping more of their 911 funds for their expenditures, which then puts the 911 fund short, and $250,000 this year and about $300,000 next year. And the decline in revenue also was going to be a problem anyways before the city decided, and I'm sure that's why the city decided to keep more of their 911 funds for themselves as they're running into the same thing. The county attorney came in and talked about his struggle to recruit and retain employees in the market that we're in right now, and his request was somewhere around $227,000 in addition to what we currently have in the budget. You heard EMS talk about their inability to recruit paramedics and retain EMTs, and that they're short-staffed 6 people and have been for over 6 months now. And they were requesting an additional $494,000 for 2025 and $250,000 for 24 to try to keep up in the market. All of the surrounding communities, the larger communities of us, have escalated or ramped up their hiring, and so we are falling drastically behind. And that's a life safety issue. And then you heard Aaron in Buildings and Grounds talk about the current budget does not allow for the full amount that we should be setting aside for depreciation on this building and our EMS stations. And he was about $210,000 short on what he thought would be best practice. So those were the items that came in yesterday that were not included in the current budget for 2020.
Did you include the radio and tower maintenance?
That is in the sheriff's budget already.
Okay.
It's an extra $150,000.
Yeah. Okay, that was an add-on.
That we previously did not have, but he added it to his 2025 budget, so it is in the budget.
Well, it's not approved.
Well, it's in the proposed budget.
It's in the proposed budget.
Yep.
And then you throw out the courthouse maintenance or repairs.
Well, the courthouse we know is going to be somewhere between $4 and $5 million to repair the roof and the facade that's falling off the outside of the building, and some of the entrances are closed because of cracking ledger stones. So that expenditure we've set aside money in the budget as proposed currently. That it would take about 10 years to pay for the expenditures we're aware of.
I think you should also include the public works being funded at a revenue neutral rate, which is not going to be acceptable.
Well, they're not. It's not quite a revenue neutral rate. They are being funded. They'll be funded at a flat mill levy rate. So, but that we know that's only about a 4% increase in ad valorem taxes. But they also lost about $60,000 in the highway fund. Special highway distribution is lower by about $60,000. So that's where some of that offset is.
So once again, thank the legislatures when you see them.
Yeah, and how could we have fixed that if the state, what's that local LVTR?
The local ad valorem tax
the
place that they removed this year would have been about $4 million to the county.
So they canceled the law that helped assist the counties and the cities, so they could keep it for our slush fund. And we're sitting here saying we could take care of our problems, probably still lower the mill levy if we had that.
Yes.
Folks, remember that when you're voting.
And that's exactly the problem that's going to have to be addressed sooner than later. Is the system is not working. Using property tax to cover the county's budget is not working. We've got to tap into different source of income. Income tax, 1% income tax could cut property taxes in half. They've got to come up with a system that works per county. Passing one set of legislation for all 105 counties doesn't work for about a dozen counties. It might be fine for 95 counties, but there's about 10 counties that using property tax is not the best idea. Until they understand that, we're going to be faced with this problem over and over and over.
I thought you meant the system wasn't working, that the lobbyist system wasn't working.
Well, evidently.
Okay.
Yep.
One concern I have is we come to budget time, and like this 911 shortfall, I would have rather heard about that earlier. I don't know when that came to their knowledge, but I'm sure it was prior to now.
On the 911?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know when this all came about.
I think Chuck said just a couple months ago.
Well, I would like to, I mean, when we were going to be facing that kind of a shortfall, $250,000 that they want out of this year's budget.
Unbudgeted.
Right. We needed to know that as soon as possible rather than right the day before, right at budget time when they knew that. So that's concerning.
So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Our ambulance service costs our taxpayers about $2 million a year to operate. The entire bill is about $8 million a year to run it, but we get about $6 million reimbursed through insurance companies. But about $2 million is not reimbursed, so that's coming out of our local taxpayers' pockets through property tax. Fort Leavenworth pays no property tax. They use our ambulance service. So every time an ambulance runs up on Fort Leavenworth, me and you are paying for it. The fort's not paying for it. So that $2 million is coming out of our local property tax payer's pocket, but it's not being paid for by Fort Leavenworth. So I've reached out to them and asked them if we could renegotiate our MOU with them. They're very receptive to it. They understand exactly what we're talking about. So they're open to the suggestion that they offer some sort of reimbursement payment or something to help us keep the ambulance service going. But these are the problems I'm talking about. Without a pilot check, a payment in lieu of taxes from the federal government for things that they're using that our local property taxpayers are paying for, we're gonna face this situation every year. We've got to fix the real problem. So since that can't happen overnight, we've got to figure out what we can do with the money that we've got today. So that's what we're looking at today is we're going to go over the outside services and see what we can do with the money that we don't have. So saying that, we'll get into the first outside service I've got in my list is Riverside Resources. We have somebody here from Riverside Resources. Come on down.
Yes.
Sure, get comfortable.
Right there. Thanks.
Good morning.
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 As you know, I've talked to you guys a couple times so far this year, and I just wanted to say thank you again for your reconsideration a few months ago. We really appreciate that. For this coming year, we've got some expenditures that unfortunately we don't have the funds for, just like you all are discussing. One of our retaining walls at one of our group homes is about to cave. It's going to cost us between $30,000 and $50,000 to replace that. The unfortunate thing is where it's situated. There are two houses that sit right close to where this retaining wall is, and so it's a matter of trying to get the equipment back there to even think about repairing it if we just went that route. We need to update a couple of our handicapped bathrooms in two of our separate group homes. Estimated cost of $15,000 to $25,000 to update two of them, and that would be a walk-in shower and wheelchair-accessible sinks. and flooring and new grab bars. Our administration building where our day services is held, we've got 5 vehicles that are handicapped vehicles. We've got several potholes in the parking lot that we need to either repair or replace the parking lot. We share the parking lot with the homeless shelter. That's technically Riverside's parking lot, but we let them use it. To have it totally redone, it'd be about $20,000, and for repairs only, just of the potholes, we have an estimate of $7,500. So we would like to request $80,000. We appreciate your time and consideration of our requests, and we understand what kind of position you all are in. But I appreciate you taking the time to hear us. So,
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How many resident or clients do you serve?
We serve a total of about 40 altogether. We have 24 in 3 separate group homes, and then we have a day service that the 24 come to that service, and then we have another 18 or 19 that come to day service that live out in the community.
Okay. And how many years has Riverside Resources received funding and support from Leavenworth County?
For as long as I can remember. I mean, Karen Baker was the executive director prior to me, and she was in her position for 32 years. And so for 32 years, they received funding.
One thing I probably missed it. I go through this, and I believe in yellow markers, and I've gone all over it. What is your staff? What's the count on your staff? Part-time, full-time, volunteer? What is that?
Currently we have 7 full-time residential staff, and we have 6 full-time day staff. So we've got an extreme amount of overtime that we're paying to the day and residential staff. We are short about 10 positions. And it seems like we hire 2, we lose 3. And most of it is because of the pay. We can't offer a lot of pay.
Yeah, we know all about that.
Yeah. So.
We understand that issue.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Does the funding from the state now that did they fund 500 additional IDD waiver spots from the state?
The state, yes. Now, the funding goes to those individual people. And we've had several people in Leavenworth County that are currently looking for services. Unfortunately, we don't have any services opening in our residential program, and since we're the only residential provider in Leavenworth County, those people have now gone to Johnson County to find residential services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same story all over.
That seems to be an issue of the residential, and non-residential. I know my daughter goes to Happy Hearts, and the lady that started that, she couldn't find any resources for her son, so she just went ahead and started the organization.
Yeah.
And it's a great organization, and your organization is a great organization. These are people that really, if anybody needs help, these are the folks that the weakest among us, So I appreciate that. What do you do as far as private fundraising efforts for your organization, as far as fundraising dinners, fundraising letters, that kind of thing?
A lot of fundraising that we've done in the past. They had done barbecues and picnics, things like that. We just had a local business downtown, the Leavenworth station, that held a fundraiser for us, and they raised about $1,500 for us. The problem is that our resources as far as finding volunteers to work a fundraiser or to donate items is very minimal, because it seems that over the years our name has fallen out. People don't know who we are, what we do, and that sort of thing. So since I've taken over the executive director position, I feel like one of my main jobs is to try to get Riverside Resources' name out in the public so they know and understand what it is we do and the kinds of needs that our people need. So I am, talking to people all the time about doing a fundraiser or things like that. I know that, like, the Interfaith Community of Hope, they have a big gala, things like that. So we're looking at doing something like that. The problem is trying to find volunteers to do that.
And what % of your budget is currently private funding?
percentage of
What do
it.
you mean by private funding?
Like private
Like
pay?
non-government funding.
Donations.
Donations?
Yeah.
Yeah, donations.
Probably 1%, if that.
So in your narrative, where it says agency-generated funds, the 23-24 revenue, that's the benefits and things that you do to generate donations. Is that what that line item is?
That's rent management for our residential people, and that basically that's what the agency generated is. Some of the people that are capable of going out into the community, we do some cleaning at some apartments, at a school, and that's where the part of that agency generated is.
Okay, I see.
It is an essential service within the community. It's absolutely an essential service. I mean, there's absolutely no getting around that. And I have to admit, I mean, I have a little bit of bias because I was a vocational director there for several years. And actually, I know a lot about the history of Riverside Resources. It began as Help Incorporated, and they began working with small children over in what was one of the Catholic schools. And then they moved into a building that was built completely by donated help and materials and all of that to build the facility that is there on 3rd Street. And it's a great organization, and the consumers who receive services there are amazing individuals, and their abilities are completely amazing, and the residential services are something that is very needed by the families and the individuals themselves. So we really appreciate what you do.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
So if we did not, you've heard, it's kind of a downer to come in here and hear about our budget, because we have a very, very tough situation. But if you did not receive these funds, what would that do to your organization? Or would you be able to continue? Or
I don't. To be honest with you, I don't know. I would have to really hit the streets and try to figure out how we're going to raise the money, because as it is, we're working on a skeleton crew. This is the most short-staffed we've been in the 14 years I've been there. And just our group homes. One of our group homes, we really need to get a different group home, and then we need to add a group home in order to be able to house people and provide housing for people that need it. They've taken 500 people off the waiting list, and the state of Kansas's goal is to have no more than 4,800 on that waiting list at a time, and the list keeps growing and growing. So there's going to be people that need the service.
have you approached the city as well?
Yes, we approach the city once a year.
Do they provide X amount of funding?
No,
They do not.
no. We got some funds from them during COVID, but that's the only funds we received from the city.
You don't receive any CDBG?
I'm sorry.
You don't receive any community development funds at all, the CDBG
No.
funds?
Block
Have you
grants.
applied?
I think so.
We have received some in the past. That's our development.
Okay.
That we received probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, just need to absolutely keep applying for that, because with the group home, you should be able to have some assistance
Right.
with at least the utilities.
Yeah, especially with that grant.
Yeah.
I got a question for Mr. Lawfrey. Mr. Lawfrey, on this funding here, is that included in your flat mill levy, being this wasn't budgeted last year?
No, Commissioners, as I stated yesterday, the only thing included for the outside agencies is any funding that they received last year was carried over into this year. Since they were not part of this year's budget, they were not carried over into 2025.
So any money would be a mill increase.
Yes. There would be a decrease somewhere else or an increase.
Okay. So your total budget is around $2.5 million. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
And then you're asking for $80,000 from the county, right? Okay. All right. I don't have anything else. Does
I
anybody else
don't.
have anything for them? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
All right.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll let you know.
Okay,
Thank you. Next, I have the Extension Office. Anybody here from the Extension? If not, we can go to the next one. I don't see anybody.
Okay.
Nobody from the Extension. All right, we'll move on to CASA. Oh, that should be in the other. We should have pulled that already, shouldn't we?
What's that?
We put CASA.
Yeah, that's
was yesterday.
Yeah.
There's
because it's been
somebody
part
here.
of it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair Building and Premium.
Fair.
Anybody from Fair Board?
Yeah, me up here.
Good morning.
Got some presentations. I'll try to be brief.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Marlo McGee. I'm the treasurer for the Leavenworth County Fair Association. To my right is Vice President Kissinger, and further down is President Johnson. I will be probably doing most of the presenting here today. But I don't think the Leavenworth County Fair needs a lot of introduction. It's our 98th year. Looking forward to 100 and a couple. We are one of the largest county fairs in the state of Kansas. And just a recap of the budget narrative, the fairgrounds not only host the Leavenworth County Fair, but is used rent-free by the Sheriff's Department has used it previously. Emergency Management Preparedness has used it. It is a voting site. We sponsor the Senior Day at the Fair. Tonganoxie Recreation Department uses it for baseball and soccer fields. And last but not least, there are numerous 4-H programs, which is secondarily what we are supporting, that use both the administration and the 4-H buildings on a monthly basis. Utilities for those use cases are funded by the association. Go to the next slide. So the association receives revenue from three main sources. Of course, the county appropriation is a big portion of that, and for that we, again, thank you for that over the years. Secondly, the use of our buildings and fair activities becomes rent income for vendor booth space, camping. Those are supplemental income portions for revenue for the year. And then, of course, the rodeo activities, gate fees, those things are a significant portion of the fair. Fair expenses for 2023 were $96,000. It cost us $96,000 to put on the fair. Revenue of $161,000 last year. Our revenue was down last year about 4.5% over 2022, and fair expenses remained virtually unchanged over 2022.
Was your attendance down? Is that why the revenue was down, or?
Yes,
I think the heat hurt us.
it was the heat.
And the heat.
It was hot.
Yeah, it was,
So of
do y'all
course,
keep counting? Do you keep numbers on your attendance? I mean, do you have any way of telling us how many came through your facility, the gates or whatever?
We just go off the parking passes.
And what did you have on that? I'm looking for a number to see how many
we
people.
estimate anywhere from like 23 to 25,000 attendance for the week.
That's all you have to say.
Yep.
Thank you.
Of course, fair revenue is not guaranteed. That's an obvious from the statements that we just made. Our current budget is based on revenue from last year. We're hoping for similar or increased revenue from parking, gate attendance, the carnival, etc. But of course, that's no guarantee. Some of the things that we do to help ourselves, we've raised the building rent again this year, an average of 28%. So that's for anybody that comes in from the outside to rent the admin building and 4-H buildings. We increased that. We increased the fair camping rates this year. We had almost a $10,000 electrical bill last year just for the fair itself. So trying to kind of help share that cost with the 4-H families to to pay a higher fare camping rate. Our planned expense budget for 2024 right now is $228,000. Our projected income is about $201,000. Again, most of that's based on last year's fare numbers, which of course can vary. So obviously we have a deficit there, and after the fair we will address that if we don't meet that. Our contractual expenses continue to increase, of course, for cleaning services, advertising, insurance has gone up significantly, pest control, security, building and grounds repair, and of course utilities. All of these are ever increasing. We had a major electrical upgrade. It was critical. It was a critical infrastructure upgrade for the fairgrounds. That was $123,000 that we spent. That project was completed in June. That's really phase one of additional electrical infrastructure that we feel needs to happen. We did some painting in the administration building. If anybody has a chance to see that coming up at the fair, I hope you'll appreciate the paint colors and really try to revitalize the admin building. Again, as justification for rent increases for the building for wedding venues and things of that nature. We're also looking at improving the lighting in that building as well as kind of one of the final touches to that. We continue to look at grants. There's local grants. Evergy has some grants out there. We're continuing to look at those and see how they can assist with our revenue stream. The next slide shows our current list of capital improvement projects. It doesn't seem like you can do anything without spending $50,000 at minimum. So I mentioned the administration building lights. Depending on how the fair comes out, we intend to complete that project yet this year at a cost of about $12,000. The electrical upgrade that I mentioned, phase 2, is pretty significant. Looking at that, or a portion of that, for 2025, total all-in cost is $157,000 to upgrade the electrical in the campgrounds. Additional projects going on down with the administration building, AC units, cattle barn roof replacements. You can see the list there, and it goes on down to 2029. So significant projects. This gives us something that we're trying to work towards with whatever funding is available. Go to the last slide. As I mentioned earlier, our anticipated total budget deficit for 2024 is about $26,000 based on current projections. Our budget ask for 2025, which was in our budget narrative, optimally we would like to go back to the $68,000 funding rate for the buildings that we had 2 years ago. I know it had to be dropped last year. We appreciate that. We understand the budget constraints, but our ask for this year is $68,000. Additionally, the premium budget is $12,000, and in 2023, our total expenses for that were $12,000. The appropriation that we've got for 2024 is $9,500, so we expect to be a little short on the fare premiums this year. And finally, any consideration of additional funding for capital projects, this would be above and beyond the appropriations that we're asking for. We did take out a $50,000 loan to help support the $123,000 improvement project that was completed this year. Depending on how the fair goes, we'll kind of determine kind of our payoff plan for that, but I believe it's a 5-year note that, again, if we can pay it off sooner, that is our intention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have questions?
Mr. Lawfrey, on the fare premium, that's a statutory requirement. Does it have an amount that the statute requires us to fund the fare premium?
We're required to fund basically what the premiums were for the previous year. So they said $12,056 for their premiums. Statutorily, we would have to cover their premiums of $12,056 for this.
Okay. I didn't know whether fair premium would cover whatever. If they requested more than what they spent, they'd cover through that.
Statutorily, it is based on what they can spend. Everything we give them, they pass on as
Okay.
So I just want to compliment you on your capital improvement plan that you guys developed. This is really good. We met with you, and this is a really good outline of what's coming up. What
Thank
the
you.
expenses are
Yes.
going to be coming up. That phase, the next phase 2, can that be broken up into pieces, or does that all have to come in at one? Like
There's
the
a
whole
possibility we could, it's the 2 campgrounds, so you got the east one and the west one. There's a possibility we could split it in half and do one campground one year and one the next.
Okay. Well, I'm just really happy with the budget that you presented here. I don't know what the outcome is going to be as far as the total, but you guys are really on track, being organized on the budget.
Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, since our meeting Mike and I had with you, it looks like you really got down to know where your numbers are, which is always good when you're presenting things. And when you got 23,000 people coming in, even on a down year, this is a quality of life issue. The fair has been around for, like you said, almost 100 years. This is something people really look forward to. Again, our roof is falling in here, and there's quite a few other things that we're having serious considerations, and it's going to be a tough budget. But I really appreciate what y'all do out there. It's just a good thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just to follow up, in the budget is $50,000. That's what we gave them this year, so that's what is in the 2025 budget currently. They're asking for an enhancement of $18,000.
Okay.
Correct.
Part of the problem, I think, is our grounds are getting older. They need more repair.
Sure.
And if you don't repair them, you have nothing in a few
Exactly.
years.
Yeah,
We
that's what we're
understand
dealing with
that.
That's why the roof's falling.
Yours is older than ours.
I'd rather put a roof on one of your barns down there than this place.
And the big difference, though, doesn't save any money, does it?
Yeah, that's not bad.
Anybody have any more questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
fellas. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to Port Authority. Hey, Lisa. I see a couple. Morning.
Good morning.
Who wants to go first?
Morning.
Morning.
We're here
Go
to
ahead.
present or to answer any questions you have in our budget. You have your paperwork in front of you. We're asking for $162,967 operating expenses, and that basically comes down to staffing for our staff that supports us, which is the LCDC. Many of the members are right here with us. That includes an economic impact model, general park maintenance, and other operating costs such as the Trails Committee, basic accounting fees, legal fees, and meetings, and what have you like that. Additionally, the program funds have been made available to us in the past, basically support the model of our operation that we've had for years with regard to the Port Authority. And that's the spec building funding, which we haven't been as fortunate as we'd like. The committee, you guys have been aware of, we've turned down or haven't had the opportunity to build these buildings. We haven't had the money to do so. But the bottom line, we've turned down over 200 opportunities because we don't have empty buildings that are ready for people to occupy. And by that I mean I'm not talking about downtown buildings, we're talking about warehouses. Along with that, we're moving forward with the idea that we have to, at some point in the future, find another business park. The business parks are filling up that we've had for a lot of years, and we're going to have to find funding to do that eventually, and we're working on that in the future too. We appreciate any level of help from the county to do that. The whole county benefits from that, not only the ones we have now, but anything we have in the future. We've had some wins, we've had some losses, hills. Obviously, a huge win for the county as a whole, huge win for Tonganoxie as well as the city. We've had some losses with Tyson, which would have been the largest tax-paying entity in the county had it been successful. This committee oversees the LCDC in their search for this. So we're really we like to think of ourselves the economic driver of Leavenworth County, because we're out there, we gather professionals from the county, other professionals that have a huge base of knowledge, huge background of contacts and everything. We've staffed it appropriately to do that, and we're continuing looking for opportunities to improve Leavenworth County as a whole, not the individual cities involved necessarily, but the county as a whole. We've had a setback this year, and Baser decided they weren't going to be part of our program. That's unfortunate. It's happened in the past. All we can do is reconvince them next year that we are of value. Sometimes you don't always see a bang for the buck right away, but then you get something like Hills that comes in and we get a huge bang for a buck. Yeah. We get companies that grow, like LMC Coating in Tonganoxie Business Park, that's grown from about 14 people now to well over 70 people, and continue to look to grow from there. So we have some wins there, not enough. So that's why we're here today to request our budget.
Well, they're paying more taxes than the pet food plants.
Yes, they are.
Let me ask a question. We talked about this before, and we threw it out. We talked times about finding a formula that when we bring somebody in, that some of that fee, whether it be administrative, whatever, comes back to you folks, so you don't have to come in all the time. And we know it won't cover everything, but it'll get you at least some funds coming in instead of giving them the whole thing. Has that been discussed?
We've looked for new ways consistently, but one of the opportunities that we use to attract businesses with the land we have is we have an opportunity to offer a discount to these people. We can to go so far as to say, well, don't give them that discount, sell it at that, then we're competing with our real estate agents in the county. We're not sure that's the best way to do that. It's not much of a discount, but it is a discount. And to my knowledge, we haven't lost anybody because we didn't offer a discount. But that's part of the reason that we exist, is to offer that opportunity.
Well, I understand that, but you probably heard too what our roof's falling. $4 million we're expecting. Times are pretty doggone tough. With, I don't know whether government in D.C. gets the things that says prices are going up 3 or 5%. I don't know about y'all. If you've been to the grocery store, you've had to build something. We have to do roads, 30% increase, and some things up 50%. So what I'm trying to do is be able to help y'all help us any way you can. And I know, I brought a lot of businesses out in Lansing in. I understand the give and take and something like that. But I'm just thinking that if there's some time, and we all put our heads together trying to help, is a model or something that y'all could get something back whatsoever. Now, if they won't take it because that takes away a discount, I get that. But I just don't know if y'all ever approach that at all.
Mike, one thing I can say is we have a committee that's set up, and Greg Cause is the chair. He's a board member, appointed board member. He's the chair of looking at options for funding. It doesn't matter what the option is. And that is in process. It's not going to be fixed overnight, but one of the things involved is how do we charge, or I don't know if you want to call it charge, but how do we assess some type of value back to the
That's what
authority?
I'm talking about, Chris.
And that is in the process, along with other options for funding that are something that could be more long-term in nature. And
that's what I was
not bouncing around every cycle for each city in the county.
Right.
It happens. It's happened every year since I've been around.
That was what I was asking for. Thank you.
And I was asking for a revenue stream somehow, a designated revenue stream for Port Authority. And we talked about maybe a ballot question.
That's
never heard no more.
Is being looked at.
That's being looked at.
Yep, that's in the process, and it's top priority. It's one of the priorities. When I left the chairmanship a couple months ago, that was one of the priorities that we set in place, and that ball is in the field and in play, and it's in the process.
We could just get it tied to a portion of a mill or a half a mill or something, and a ballot question.
In the beginning, wasn't it?
Let's take it.
Wasn't that the way it was in the beginning when it was LAD?
Yes, that was
one mill went
There still is a
time
portion of mill that's set aside for economic development.
Right.
To do something, to do an increase or something that dedicates it toward the Port Authority.
One mill right off the top.
Right.
That's how they did it before.
Well, what we'd like to do there is we want to educate the populace of Leavenworth County as to the value of that. We didn't want to rush it to the table or to the voting booth without them being educated. It could be a mill levy. It's an increase, obviously. So we want them to understand.
But
what's going on.
if you get businesses in here paying taxes, it should take care of itself. But tax abated business 100% is not really helping us out.
May I respond to that?
Certainly.
I would just like to say that, first of all, the economic development efforts is a long game. The decisions that are made today and the efforts that are made today may not be felt for 10, 20 years. That's evident in the Tonganoxie Business Park. The decisions made that have led to the success of today occurred decades ago. And so I understand that incentives, giving those tax abatements now, but it's for the purpose of later down the line. And I would like to say that we have some successes that are done with those tax abatements. Cereal ingredients came, over 15 years ago, and they came with 35
25.
people. 25.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at 35 people to start with. They have grown to over 200 employees. There are 124 of those people live in Leavenworth County. Then also they've expanded their footprint twice. Their 2023 property taxes are over $200,000 because they're done with their tax abatement. They had a 10-year 100% tax abatement. So I know that while initially it may seem like we're losing out, eventually it will just pay back.
Well, but it's not paying us back because if they got a 100% tax abatement and then City of Tonga comes in here and wants us to upgrade a road to it, it's not working out real well for us.
A wise man said, when you're planting a tree, a seedling, that you plant it knowing that you may never enjoy the breeze that it will provide is something that y'all have to look at, and that's what we understand. You may do something that takes 20 years out, or 20 or 15, 20 years. I think what the challenge we're having is, folks, with not receiving back I keep going back to this, the taxes that was due from the state back to the county and all the cities, which is about $4 or $5 million. We could have easily taken care of this, but for some reason that law no one followed the law, and now they've disbanded. So we've lost, the counties and the cities in Kansas have lost billions of dollars. And it was a law that wouldn't follow for 19 years. If we had got that money back from our state reps, a lot of them are good friends of mine, but if they'd voted to give that back, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So we're in a tough spot. Again, I believe in growth. That's why I talk about, someone that plants the seed not being able to see it, he won't get to see it, but everyone else in the future will enjoy reaping the benefits of it because people were thinking ahead. But I've been doing budgets since I was over 40-something years out in Lansing here. I've never seen a budget that the county's facing. I mean, it's beyond ugly. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, but I don't think that I don't appreciate what y'all do, and we've had talks, and I've worked with all of you when I was a city manager for all those years. But it's a tough time for us. But we'll see in my opinion, we'll see what pans out, guys, gals.
We've got to get a revenue stream identified and be locked down and done, so we don't got to do this.
Go ahead, Mike.
The 20 mills that is dedicated to schools is not tax abated. So when Hill's Pet Nutrition comes into Tonganoxie, and now they're open, that is already benefiting our public schools in Tonganoxie. So I think that's an important point to realize. When we do tax abatements, it does not abate the 20 mills for public schools. So we are already seeing a return for our local schools from this massive investment. And is it now up to over $500,000, the Hill's Pet Nutrition?
The last I was told was $450 million.
$450 million, which is the largest private economic development in the history of Leavenworth County?
Correct.
So number one, we are receiving benefits because of the 20 mills for schools. We're already receiving benefits. And in 10 years, they're not going to walk away from a $450 million facility. The county is going to benefit from that facility, and that will come on the tax rolls for the city, and it will benefit the county as well. I think that's an important point that folks don't realize.
Well, it's
good if 464 would lower their budget then.
You know, one other thing too, though, we've done in the past, and for a lot of things, there's a lot of techniques that cities use. Main Street overlay districts, neighborhood revitalization, which is basically some of the same stuff you're doing, but it's being called something. When Lansing we brought in all those businesses out there. Neighborhood revitalization, we set it up as a tool the state let us do. They got, for about, depending on how much money you invested, they got 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they got that except for 5% that the county kept for administrative fees. They got that all back. So, but then after time, after 3, 5 years, instead of a total tax abatement, 3, 5 years, 25% started coming back. Then after 5%, another 25% started coming back. There's no way Lansing would be sitting where they're at right now if the people 20 years ago hadn't set these things in place. And I think that's what I'm thinking. Instead of giving total tax abatement, if there's some other tool, and y'all are smarter than I am, to say that it can be broken down into percentages so the county can start reaping a little bit of it sooner than waiting to 10 years. Even though I agree with Mike saying that's going 10 years, people are going to be in hog heaven, as my mom would say, about stuff like that. But right now it's kind of tough on us.
Oh, I agree. If we would have just got 25%. A 75% tax abatement, enough to pay for the road.
Just too.
But that's.
I don't. We, as LCDC and the Port Authority, we have no authority on tax abatement. That is not part of what we can do for these projects. So I just think what you're getting through. I can speak very clearly for LCDC. You're getting national exposure through our marketing efforts. You're getting an entity that brings public and private expertise together, and we are working in partnership with our regional economic development organization, with the Department of Commerce at the state level. We're responding to national projects all the time. I think those are the things that we're doing. We're working with our existing businesses and helping them to expand and grow, so that they're expanding their jobs, they're expanding their property taxes, sales taxes, those kinds of things, and that's bringing a lot of economic development. But we don't have anything to do with the tax abatements. That's up to the cities and county.
And I think we have to remember that the expertise that the businesses and the business owners and the representatives that own businesses within the community and that serve on these boards as volunteers, the cost savings to us and to the community in general is immeasurable. It's kind of like when we were talking about the number of volunteers that we have at the Council on Aging for the Meals on Wheels and the programs there, that those volunteer hours, the hours that these individuals put in to working toward economic development in Leavenworth County is hard to measure until you kind of put pen to paper and look at what we might have to pay somebody to do some of these same jobs. There's a lot of savings there, and this is a public partnership with private, and I think that it has so far worked very well in our community, and we need to continue to allow it to, over time, look at the benefits, because they have been achieved and they will continue to be achieved if we invest.
Don't get me wrong, what y'all done down south is just unbelievable. You know, there was an old CEO out in Wyandotte County. What was her name? Carol Marinovich? Yep. And people laughed at her, and she said, "We'll never bring the Speedway out here." Look what happened. You got to dream big, but you also got to have your plan in place to do it. And look what they're doing down there. So I'm not sitting here saying what y'all haven't done. It's just, especially down south, it's unbelievable. And I know a lot of the cities, a lot of places do the old, "What have you done for me lately?" I understand that. But I am very pleased that what's being built down there. Years to come past my time, it's going to really serve this county well. We just got to get there.
Yeah. So I have a couple more questions. On the business park search, what's the progress of that, and are they prioritizing real access?
That's part of the equation. Prioritizing it, I can't say that. It depends on what kind of lots we have available. And this is something that's been new to us over the last 6 months that we've got the committee put together, and we're looking at plots of land. We're trying to use a scientific model to do that. Plots of land that might be tied together with other family members, so to provide the size of lots that are needed for a business park. I will remind the commission that Gary Carlson Park was given to us all those years ago. I don't think we're going to be lucky enough to have that.
Not in this county.
Somebody want
So what's the progress? I mean, when do you think we're going to have some kind of a
I believe that we're expecting that by August.
Yeah, serve on that committee, and we've put together pieces of how to narrow down the whole county. Obviously, there's some places in the county that don't have any access to sewer, water, utilities, power. And so we've made a lot of progress with the help of the GIS group out of the county, starting to narrow down corridors where it makes logical sense from if I'm a business and I come to town, I don't want a piece of property that's out where I can't get power, I can't get gas, and I can't get water, and I can't get sewer.
Yeah,
so you can narrow down a lot of the county, which is bad for some parts of the county because they may not, from our perspective. But we're narrowing that down pretty closely. We've made a lot of progress, and I think our goal, and I don't remember the exact numbers, is to try to get down well under 100 pieces of property within this range of access.
If I may add, one of the things that the visioning committee did is we actually brought in all of the cities in Leavenworth County. We went to KDOT and we got the McIntyre Road visible, which resulted in the state giving us $35 million to progress. It's not a $35 million project. It's going to be a lot more than that. But it crosses counties and it crosses states, and it takes the pressure off of Highway 7 with all this traffic, which means it's going to be taking pressure off your industrial park by taking it down Eisenhower, taking it down Gilman, and hitting that bypass. So this is some of the stuff that we've done in preparation for looking at the industrial parks. Where's the access going to be? Where's the thoroughfares going to be? Taking the pressure off of the city. And that's already on the books. We got that done. And we had people like KCC and other entities bringing in stuff and speaking for us on that. So that is done. That's in the works. So we've gone from there to looking at what property is accessible by these avenues and what makes sense. And a lot of them, quite frankly, have to be adjacent to the city because the county doesn't have a sewer plant.
Nor do we want one.
So we need one.
We have to think about
but we
like
do
that.
need one.
And
Yeah,
some of
those
these-
are not the bills.
Things are 150 acres, 300 acres. They're not
Commissioners,
small
I
family.
might
this is-
remind you that you have a lot of other
Right,
people who are
that's
here
what I was
to
going to say.
present.
Okay.
The conversation we're having now is not necessarily budget related, but it'd probably be good to have them come back in and maybe give an update where we can allocate time specifically for that.
I would like to add one thing before we leave. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but the LCDC and me as a Port Authority chair got to meet with Senator Marshall about a month ago here in town, and we spoke about many of these things, including the infrastructure improvements that we need that would take state or national help to provide. A reminder, the Leavenworth County is really the last quarter of the Kansas City area that needs these improvements in order for us to grow, and we can't do it as individual cities or individual counties, as simple as that. They're focusing right now on east-west thoroughfares from Wyandotte heading west. We need Leavenworth County for them to start focusing on north-south
Talk about
corridors.
that.
And we made that very clear to Senator
Yeah,
Marshall.
that's
So I
right.
think we probably should have a work
I
session
think
with
so
them.
because of this land thing for the next industrial park. If they don't get something nailed down pretty quick, there's not going to be any large tracts of ground.
So let's,
And there's some of, like the the industrial park, the Panasonic plant impact on the economic development of the county.
Star bonds.
Your position on star bonds and how are you doing a study if that advances? Are
Let's-
LCDC going to be
Yeah,
involved?
no, let's
Work
get,
session.
we're good points, but
we're in the weeds.
we need a work
Well,
session.
I
I
think
think.
we should set.
Let's just set up a work session if everybody agrees
That's
with
not good.
that.
You guys will set a work session up with you guys.
You'll get to come back.
There's a lot more to talk
So like I
about.
said, I mean,
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
for your time.
Thanks, everybody.
that's for sure.
Mark, do you want to go on with Alliance Against Family Violence or go wait?
Whichever
Yeah.
one you want.
Should we,
need to start
or should we
this other
just,
meeting at
No,
10?
I would finish it, budget meetings first.
All right.
is that the last one we've got?
I
Okay.
think you still have the extension and soil conservation.
Oh, yeah,
well, let's go.
they're here.
Which one we go with?
Extension? Are they here? Extension,
Okay.
come on down.
put them in a different pile.
We shouldn't take that much more time to get these done.
It's only a couple.
So
isn't it?
I apologize. I don't know. We never got notification about the meeting. So
Oh, no.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to
that's
it.
my story, and I'm sticking to it. How are you guys?
You're sure
Good
welcome.
morning.
Thank
Be
you.
here.
How are you guys this morning?
Good. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm okay.
So is there anything major you want to point out in your? We've got your budget in paper form, but is there any extraordinary things you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I think with the move to Cushing, we've been able to expand programming, which has been great. When it comes to, we have a lot of partnerships now with with the Council on Aging. We've done programming with them. We've been able to do programming out in the community with Deeper Windows Association and some of those other partnerships. We're programming too with the Veterans Shelter that's there on Limit. So being able to expand and also offer a space for people to come in and use our facility as well, which has been nice. So we're very grateful that we have that space to do that with. But, everything, more programming is more expense. And also, we want to stay competitive. We lose agents. We just lost our ag agent, actually, because he found, he was offered a job with more money. So that's the biggest part of the budget is just keeping our salaries competitive to be able to hold staff and maintain the work that we're doing and hopefully grow. So we continue to grow in numbers when it comes to our 4-H youth and opportunities that we're offering them. I just took a group to D.C. and being able to expand and look at government from a national perspective and kind of take those kids and let them experience something they've never got to experience before. So that was neat. And just, that program, our 4-H program continues to grow. We're getting ready for the county fair. Our numbers for that are up. They've been steadily increasing every year. We are continually looking for ways to outreach to populations that maybe are a little bit more underserved and do the best we can to serve our community. So
We funded your agency at the same level as last year because I don't know. You weren't here
last
to
2
hear.
years it's been the same, I believe.
Well, you didn't hear. You weren't here to hear what we're facing as far as the budget.
Right.
So I understand that you would like to have an increase, but if we did fund you at the same level, you would be able to survive.
We would, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Sonia, you put in last year for vehicles.
Yes.
And it's in
So
this year's budget again.
We have 2 county vehicles that we've had. They're both early 2000s in age. Both are starting to have maintenance problems, have miles on them. It's a little nerving when you're taking kids, especially across the state, or we've used them to go on national, like to Colorado last year for a national contest, that type of thing. So we just need to have a plan in place for when that time comes that they no longer are safe for our youth to be in. And surely we don't want to, break down on the side of the road with a bunch of kids in a car. So just trying to look for a plan. I know I had spoke to Janet Kaczynski about, and I think also Mark, about the county lease program being part of that. So that's kind of what we were hoping for, but we do know that it needs to be a long-term plan on when we're going to get them replaced and how that's going to work.
Okay. Yeah, we're familiar with vehicle maintenance.
Boy, are we.
The other thought we thought with that too is that would allow us maybe to use the county for vehicle maintenance and reduce costs when it comes to oil changes and maintenance on the vehicles too. So,
What's our statutory requirement for extension?
Statutorily, we're required to review and approve their budget numbers, but I don't believe there's a statutory dollar amount set. If that's your question.
Okay. And you get about from the state of Kansas. 50.
So state of Kansas provides us with about 30% of our agent salaries when it comes to budget. The state of Kansas also, we have access to numerous specialists through the state to be able to help serve our community. For example, We've done some pond visits where we've had a K-State specialist on pond management come down and meet with several residents of Leavenworth County. That if we paid for that, that'd be about $500 a visit. So, having that access to those specialists, it's not an actual monetary, here's the money, but there is a monetary amount to that. And then we get some IT support and program support. They help support, our management, like 4-H management program that we use and that type of thing. They also provide the insurance for our youth. They're under a liability insurance, our youth and all the registered volunteers. That's another state expense that they take care of. So it's not necessarily here's the money, but they support us in other ways.
So if you were asked by people out in the community what it is that you do for our community, can you kind of give me a little narrative on that?
Sure. So we provide any agricultural assistance or advice when it comes to so on the ag side for our producers in the community, we have talked about how they lay out their land, what kind of crop they can benefit from, what they can use to make their profits better. We do some financial management with them. And then horticulture-wise, any type of, we do soil samples, so community or people coming in to the community who would like to see what they have grass problems or whatever that may be, we could test their soil. We provide water test kits if they want to test their wells or whatever that may be. Any identification of, we get that a lot on like, my tree is dying, what's going on? Can you help us identify that? So those are on the ag side. On the family consumer sciences side, we are providing programming for healthy nutrition, diabetes, physical activity. We've done a lot of programming lately on how do you make meals with a smaller budget and that type of thing. I know we've gone into programming with the elderly population about making meals where they don't have to maybe use their stove and how they, so they're safe, those type of things. And then on the 4-H side, we're obviously working with youth. 4-H youth are 4 times likely to serve their community. They're 4 times likely to go into a field of like STEM-related, that type of thing. So developing leaders, confidence. I always tell, like, they're learning about a project or a project education, but on the backside, we're really teaching skills that are like public speaking skills and boosting confidence, and how do you sell yourself, and how do you talk to an adult about a product. All of those skills come out of the 4-H program. It's pretty amazing to see a kid at 7 not be able to get up and say their name when it comes to roll call, and in a couple of years they can actually get up and do an impromptu presentation, and that's what 4-H does. We also teach parliamentary procedure, which we're one of the few organizations that obviously do that, and as you guys know, that's a life skill that you use your entire life, no matter what board you sit on, whatever that may be. That also comes out of the 4-H program. So we have approximately 400 youth enrolled, and then well over 200 volunteers that help us run the program when it comes to 4-H.
Very good. Where did you get the statistic on the 4 times more likely?
So they did a study a few years ago, and actually they're getting ready to do another study. And it was a statewide study when it comes to statistics on kids that are in the 4-H program and what they do, and that's where those numbers come from.
Could you send me a copy of that?
Sure.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Nope.
It's pretty clear.
That's all we need.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last, I think, is Alliance Against Family Violence. Oh, and soil conservation. Who's closest to the front?
Alliance?
Alliance Against Family Violence. Come on down.
We're not going to have a lot of questions.
I know it way too well. It's a shame.
Morning. Who wants to talk first?
Well, it'll mostly be me.
Okay.
We're in transition for executive director. So we were talking about earlier, you have some staffing things. I can happily say we don't have that at the Alliance. We identified a problem with turnover a couple of years ago, and we are down to almost none. However, we do have an executive director turnover. So We run very lean. We did not know about submitting the budget until the last minute, and because I never do these, I threw in the kitchen sink and told you everything that we need, regardless of whether you have it or not. I'm hoping you guys consider whatever you consider. Tell us what you can do and what you can't do. What you can't do, we'll figure out, or we'll do without. We run very lean, as I'm sure you can tell. I mean, we're running this shelter on a budget of $500,000 for a shelter that stays full in a building that's pretty much falling apart, and providing a lot of services to do that. But everywhere I look, I see opportunity and an opportunity to do better. What I put down in that budget is everything having to do with infrastructure, security, and privacy, and some of the things that we're required to complete and do per our grants through the governor's grants. Our governor's grants and the grants that we do participate in predominantly cover wages and programs. They do not cover physical plant. They do not cover infrastructure, IT, any of that. So I come from a very large corporate world in healthcare for many, many, many years. They are very tired of me because they haven't had an executive director, and I've been sitting in their office for the last 3 weeks, identifying things that are going to change. We have been very active in fundraising on a smaller level. Many organizations in the city and the county have been very gracious. Our local 4-H club down in Tonganoxie just brought us a whole lot of soft goods. It was very nice. It was all over Facebook. But it's really not enough. I mean, we're not even serving our own county with some of those services. We're accepting help from other counties for sex trafficking. And they're not doing a very good job of it. Our shelter's sitting here full, falling apart. I did a walkthrough the other day and realized there's been no maintenance on the AC, and it's hotter than hell in there, and I had to beg somebody, a good friend of mine, to come fix it. So, yeah, I threw a lot in here under the assumption that we may not get anything. So, ask questions. I've been with this board, 4 years, if you didn't know that. And I've sat as a secretary. We worked to get it accredited, to bring it back from where it was, which was in the trash. We got accredited 2 months ago.
Yeah, I think that was the problem when it didn't exist there for a year or two, was the grant ball got dropped.
Lost it, got all a mess. Yeah. And I come into the board as a member for about 3 months, got thrown into the secretary, documented the crap out of everything. And I've been sitting as the treasurer and the vice president up until last month. And I offloaded the treasurer to somebody else. So currently the vice president, I've got our grants manager who's doing a good job. We are still rounding out her skill set for finding more grants because we do plan to expand our services to a greater degree. Our shelter manager who takes care of all the day-to-day staff, because it is a 24/7 shelter. It stays full constantly, and we are always turning people other directions. And our board secretary.
So your total budget is around $500,000.
We're running on around $500,000. It's woefully low. Like when I compared, I got from the Kansas Coalition yesterday their statistical assessment of where salaries should be. We're paying 50 odd for the ED. They're supposed to be around 70. So our salaries are sitting a little low, but it is a smaller shelter. If we expand it, which we need to do, we're going to have to bring that up. And I didn't even include that in what I put in. Everything I put into our budget for what I submitted for you all to consider, if any part or piece of it, is IT, technical security, and infrastructure physical plant.
And that's the $79,000 ask that you're asking for? Okay.
Because, it's an old building.
Oh, sure.
Any
questions?
We got to keep it up.
Just Mr. Lawfrey, this is different than CASA. This is not court required to state that we fund this, unlike CASA.
Any other questions?
But I can tell you,
It's an essential function.
I can tell you, after being a police officer for 20 years, it's a very important organization. I was one of the founding board members when we started many years ago. I'm telling my age. But this is something that helps the police officer and gets him back on the road. But the bottom line, I sit on that board for a lot of years, and I know some things don't change. And some of the things that they do to help people is unbelievable. But at the same time, and I'm all for you, but at the same time, our building's falling down. We're $4 million going to have to find money for a roof. But I totally support what y'all do and what you go through. I've seen it firsthand for many years. So thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Question for you: How often are drugs and alcohol a contributing factor in domestic violence cases?
In the cases themselves, or in the cases that are in the actual shelter, like, defined better?
Just in the overall cases.
It's pretty prevalent. I mean, abusers are going to abuse whether they're using or not.
So you could
People
say
who
that's a
abuse
contributing
drugs,
factor to.
People who abuse drugs are
So it lowers their inhibitions to go ahead and.
they're going to be more likely to abuse.
So, what percent would you say if you were given a percent?
You have that statistic?
It's hard to give percentages on domestic violence because of the lack of reporting.
Alcohol
Right.
and drugs contributing.
We know statistically that the incidences go up, and that's according to PD
when that
reports.
happens.
And the PD, because PD does keep track of their cases of, like, when there's a football game or something like that, you get an increased number of calls reported for PD support to bring people in, right? People who are drinking causes a domestic disturbance, fighting, whatever, and then they get called in. So I can safely say that as a statistic.
So you say your facility is full. How many people is
There
that?
are 5 rooms, and that varies because it's family, right? So it might be a person and their children. It might be 2 children. It might be 4 children to a room. So the number varies. So I'm saying room capacity full.
What's the average stay now?
You have your average stay?
It's about 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months before we rehouse.
Which is getting more and more difficult because the waiting lists are becoming longer and longer because of funds. So
Yeah. I
So
understand.
if you have homeless people.
We don't have
We don't
homeless
take
people.
homeless
We
people.
screen for that.
Right.
We do not.
we only take
Absolutely do
domestic
not
violence,
take.
sexual assault.
Okay, I'm sure there's domestic violence among
I'm sure there
people out on
is.
the streets. So you don't.
It's a separate.
But
You
they
don't
can
address
be-
that.
They can be worked with at the shelter if there's a need, because there are case managers and
They can
people
access
who are-
services,
right,
but not
Stay.
residential, like to stay.
to stay, but they're not required to leave the
And
shelter.
We're not going to
at
shelter
the
them.
time. So
That's
We refer
important.
them to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Alternate placement.
Yeah.
But they can
All
still
right.
access services.
I assume most of your victims are women.
Predominantly.
What would you say is what do you do for like a man victim?
There's alternate placement for them.
Do
But they
you
can still
have
access
another
services.
place for them?
We have emergency accommodations money to place them in hotels and things like that, just because sometimes it does make the women uncomfortable if they are in the same building. So yeah, we do have money set aside for that.
So you're not, since you're helping outside, even though you say you've only got this amount of rooms, how many are you, as an average, how many are you having to place another place and assist with, the legal system and everything else that goes along with doing this?
So we don't have very much money for emergency accommodations at all, so we don't likely use that very often unless it is like a male.
And it's very rare.
Yes.
I mean, I'm saying it's
Like
less
a lot of
than
men,
twice a year.
Yeah, a lot of men, they don't come and ask for help.
Yeah, I can only think of 2 in my
but
history.
you provide advocacy for the
And
women.
we can
in
still
the
provide
That's what I'm.
That's what I'm.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
That's where I was going.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
You interact with faith-based organizations and use them
Counseling
for
and
referrals
services
that kind of
and-
thing.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
Nope, I'm fine.
Thank you very much. We really
Thank you for your
appreciate
consideration, whatever you can do.
appreciate you coming in, and we really appreciate what you guys do.
Thanks.
Last ASCS, we got somebody for soil conservation. Yeah. Tell them my age, I guess.
The old ASC office.
Yeah, ASCS.
It used to be the ASC.
Yeah, Farm Services.
Love the post office for years.
Just a couple things.
Thank you.
SCS and ASCS. I always get those confused. Yeah, I always got them confused.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think one number on that, about 3 sheets in there, there's a number that says our receipts from last year, but of course I did not check that. That was what the receipt was. As year to date, we had one more draw from the county, so that would have there's a number in there that says 16,875 should have been either 25 or 22.5. I can't remember. 22.5 is what we received last year from the county. So about 10 years ago, we were at $55,000. We're requesting. We've got 25,000. We'd like to request to go back to 45,000, or we'd like to request to go back to 55,000. Obviously, eventually, but I see where this is going, so we're fine. We were at 55,000. We tied our office in with Jefferson County, so we moved out into the NRCS office, which is who we work closely with most everything we do. So we did drop our budget request down at that time. Plus we were sharing a district manager with Jefferson County. We did that for several years. It just did not work out. Just one employee and two boards kind of trying to direct the manager. It didn't work out. So now we have our own district manager again, which has been great because NRCS, it's been working out very well for NRCS. Megan here is our district manager. Casey here works with NRCS. You're not our conservationist. Jamie's the conservationist.
I'm the soil conservationist.
You're the soil conservationist. Okay. Specifically. But anyway, so how many people work in the office at NRCS?
So we are having staffing issues, pretty much the same as everybody. Typically, we have 4 NRCS employees in our office, and we only have 2 right now. It is myself and then Jamie Funk, who is the district conservationist.
Okay, so like I said, what we do at Leavenworth County Conservation District, besides our conservation programming that we do, we get some state cost share money. Most of what we're supposed to do is help administrative help with NRCS, and NRCS does all the technical assistance for the Farm Service Agency, so all of the farm programs that go through to all the farmers in the county, all the crop insurance, all of the EQIP programs, environmental quality incentive program payments, and programs that the county does, all of CRP. Yeah, there you go. CRP is obviously the big long-standing program that you'll have. Anyway, our role at the Conservation District with NRCS is to provide that administrative help. Then we also do all of our stuff with the state conservation. The Division of Conservation is who we get our state program funding. There's 22,175.75 is their match. So they'll match any dollar that the county provides up to that amount. So that is where our funding comes from. Like I said, we'd like to get back to our 55. 45 is what we're asking for, so that we are in a budget crunch. We have a little bit of money from when we had a single employee between the 2 counties. We did save some money when we got rid of rent. So in the near future, there's no way we could operate off of $25,000. So I guess that's what we're saying. In the future, we will definitely have to be funded, or we just won't be able to run the conservation district. NRCS, there's a few counties in the state that don't have conservation districts, and they don't get the technical assistance. There's some animosity between NRCS and those counties, so it's really pretty much required. Yeah.
So your office is the one that sends the letters out to farmers saying they got ditches in their fields and stuff like that and you need to fix them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Leavenworth County, as far as you guys are concerned, is combined with Jefferson County for the department?
So the FSA office used to be down here behind Casey's.
Yeah.
And it was combined with Wyandotte County, and at one point they moved Wyandotte County in with Douglas County and put Leavenworth County out with Jefferson County. So you can if you're in the southern part of the county. I think Monty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you go down to Douglas County, don't you? Yeah, you have the option to go for Farm Service Agency stuff. But if you want direct assistance of any kind of conservation programming in Leavenworth County, you'll go to the Oskaloosa office. Okay. Is the service center for Leavenworth and Jefferson.
So Atchison's separated, and then Wyandotte County separated now too. But Douglas and do you guys ask Douglas County for funds too?
No. Leavenworth County's it. I guess I made it a little more confusing than it should have been there. for the Farm Service Agency individually and specifically, if you are a producer in Leavenworth County, you can actually go to other counties and have them certify your acres. They're not doing anything more than entering, those numbers the Farm Service Agency is looking for those programs. Yeah, but as far as we're concerned, no, you can't. As a producer in Leavenworth County, I can't go out to Atchison County and get technical assistance for a program within the county. It has to be at the assistance center, or at the, what do they call it? The service center. Yeah. Which is actually in Oskaloosa, yes.
Okay.
So if we didn't fund this, give an example of how that would negatively affect our producers.
Well, NRCS can't not provide assistance. They can't do that, but you know how that works.
Statutory requirements for certain
up to a match.
I don't know that there's a statutory requirement for what we contribute, but I do know there's a matching portion that as long as we contribute, I believe it's up to $25,000.
Yeah,
then match.
That's why we're there. Yeah.
That's why we did not drop the 25 this year. We kept at least that.
Because it's going to, if they don't get to 25, they won't get anything from the state.
Yeah, if you give us nothing, we get nothing from the state.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
People that are watching this to understand what the benefit is.
Absolutely.
For us to fund this.
Yeah, and like I said,
the state should fund it all.
Well,
You think?
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's not the question.
Yeah. Well, the state used, absolutely.
They used to, probably.
So
well, no, they
give us
never.
An example of what this does for our producers.
Yeah, so we've got, just on the state level cost share funding, it has ranged that the counties received anywhere from, $150,000 in cost share programs that went directly to producers all the way down this year, it's $30,000. That's like direct programs, out doing, I couldn't even, there's such a breadth of programs that simple version terrorism, is the things that they've always been doing.
To build
off streams, tops, specific soil sampling, things like that. Those are the state, the NRC equip bigger projects. The state generally does smaller, kind of capped projects, in that $6,000-8,000 range that are 50-50 cost share. Much up to 80%.
It varies based on the practice. It depends.
Yeah, like this year, I think there's about $160,000 worth of equip contracts this year that the county's getting from that, and then of course, the CRP program. It always has to be. They're always checked, and I think that number's about $175,000 with the CRP contracts that annually every year that are paid out. But it's somewhere between 175 and 225. There's a new farm bill, and there's some expiring and things like that.
I will just say another benefit that the Conservation District provides is that when it comes to financial assistance for programs federally, all of our applicants, which we had about 80 this year, are competing for funds throughout the entire state, whereas at the Conservation District level, you're only competing with funds with this county. So a lot of the times, producers and participants will have more success getting funded at the local level, whereas we, unfortunately, at the federal level, do not get to fund the majority of our applications.
We almost always fund the ones that don't get passed at the state level.
You guys still loan out a drill to
Yeah.
plant native grass, for instance?
Yeah, absolutely.
No-till drill.
Yeah, no-till drill.
Yeah, a little no-till drill for,
Okay. Any other questions?
grass, things like
Very
that.
good.
All right. Well,
If you have any questions, just
we got your number.
get with me.
Thank you, folks,
you.
very much.
Try to be quick for you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We got behind a little bit.
We got too far behind.
That's all the budget hearings, right? Mark? Okay. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start the fire district meeting.
Yeah.